And a really good morning to you. It's Robert Craven here. Delighted to be here for the first of the out of office hours webinars on the AAP program. The first module was pricing agency services, and what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the worksheet. We're going to take any questions. If you've got any questions, please do give us the questions. That'd be absolutely fantastic. It's good to see people signing in, saying they're there, they can't wait, they're saying good morning. So do give us the questions. And we've got some questions that you sent us already. So what I'm going to do is literally go through the quiz and the worksheet, give you the answers, or the answers we believe are the best answers. And what we'll also do is we'll take any questions from you as they come up. This should take roughly half an hour. But we'll keep going if there's some good questions coming in. We want to make sure this is really effective for you and for your agency. So I hope you enjoyed the original 2 25-minute video pieces. They're great fun to make, and they're great fun and insightful to actually look at how agencies like yours go about how they go about pricing their services. And just to remind you, the reason we put pricing at the front is because so many people have said that that's a real issue, you know, and we've got a program here which is divided up into obviously sort of how we put the agency together and then how we grow it. So this is the first module, and we're going to be running this over seven fortnights. So here we go. So the quiz started off with that question we get so many times in workshops, which is, you know, how do agencies typically price their services? And there are a whole load of different answers. There's in some senses there's not a right answer, because the right answer is the answer that you apply, you know, to your market, for what your market and what your customers need, based on what your business model is. But there's kind of better and less good answers, if that makes sense. So different people have different approaches, and that's the one thing. However, I would argue it's a bit of everything depending on what you're doing, and that's pretty much what everyone said. So it is a mix of the above. Some agencies, everything is all about a percentage of spend, and they'll have a menu which says something like spend up to £500 per month will be at, say, 12%. Spend between £500 and £1,500 a month will be at 11%. Spend above £1,500 will be at 10%, or whatever. But the price point's never absolutely straightforward. Other agencies go for the time and resources, and as we discussed on the original sort of video, the trouble with that is you end up getting into arguments about how much time did you spend, how much resources, was it half an hour, was it quarter of an hour, and what people will tend to do on pricing is they'll take one bold approach, which is, on the whole, we're going to do percentage of spend and we'll do a bit of performance, or they'll go for time and resources. I think you have to remember that you're the person doing the selling. It's up to you to make the decision around how you charge, and just be clear about that. The customers, they don't buy services, PPC services, on a regular basis, so they don't, in some senses they don't know. And the issue is far more not about how much they pay, but how much is the return on the investment. So when there's a pushback around price, this should always be about, yes, this will be costing you whatever the amount of money is, but we anticipate you're going to get this number of leads or this number of sales. So always try and flip it back into that return on investment piece rather than price. Always try and present the fee as an investment that they're going to see a return on, rather than a pure naked price. So second question is, you're responding to a request from a mid-sized business. They've asked you to quote specific media spend necessary and your associate agency fee. So which would you prefer to do? And if you recall, the choices were A, it's distracting to give options. I'd write down one budget recommendation specific for pricing my services. That feels a little tight. As we pointed out, if you give people some choice and some flex, then they're in a ballpark and they can work around that. But if you just give one price, then it becomes a bit binary. They either say yes or no. Whereas if you're giving a choice with one set of services and then additional services, is better. I would not recommend a specific budget was number B. I would say that in AdWords, budgets are flexible. Clients need to know. They need to know what they're going to be charging. Again, if they see you as the expert and you've done your exploratory conversations with them properly, then you should have a pretty good idea of what their budget is, how much they're prepared to pay, what you think you can do for them, and again, what the return on investment for them should be, even if that's not in terms of sales, but in terms of increased presence or increased number of links. So not recommending a specific budget suggests that you're not on top of the game, and that kind of isn't a proposal. A proposal is something that tells the client what they're going to be paying. Number C, I would specify an ideal budget. In other words, for what you're looking for, the best budget would be this. And as well as going for this, there are maybe one or maybe two options that you could adjust to. That's the preferred one. And the final possible solution was D, which was I'd give 4 or 5 options, plus 2 or 3 options on service pricing. That kind of feels like a bit too much. I think you just need to think about when you go to a restaurant. If you've got a huge, great menu, it's mind-boggling. You end up thinking they've just got stuff in a deep freeze and a microwave. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make people think that you are offering a great service and it's well thought through and you're the expert. So as a general response, you should come back with the ideal budget, which assumes you've had that proper conversation, and maybe 1 or 2 flex points. But don't go bonkers. Don't expect them to make all the choices. So question 3 was about the cachet of the brand, and you remember in the video we had the bottles of beer on the beach and so on and so forth. How could you benefit from this aspect of pricing psychology, which would make people agree to a higher prospects? Check the ones that apply. And the answer to that were your references. I think references and testimonials are a fantastic way of showing people how good you are by adding value. It's like, in effect, saying, look who else we've worked with. Would you like to be like one of them? It's where you're based can be really important. Personally, I like to buy from people who are nearby. I have this mentality in my head that I'd like to be able to put a brick through at their window if they did something wrong. I know that's a facetious thing to say, but I think there's a sense that very often people like to work with agencies which are nearby. And your technical knowledge, some people put down your technical knowledge. That's kind of a given, that you are a digital agency, or it should be. I'll rephrase that. It should be a given. Those are your credentials. But yes, you can. That won't lift you up so much. And actually, I think the affiliation with Google, I mean, if you look at a lot of the websites of your competition, clearly up front, they describe themselves as a Google partner, and they're proud of their association with Google. And that actually kind of demonstrates, and some people also go on to say what that actually means, that they've been through the exams, they've been on programs, and they're recognized by Google to be a great agency. So for me, this is a ABD. C can be regarded as the technical knowledge can be regarded as possible, but the nailed answer is ABD for me. Any questions? Just fill in the questions. Just let me know what the questions are. Then we had some exercises. You were asked to look at the TED Talk, the Casey Brown, and I think that Casey Brown video is great. I really like it, and I really like the fact that she kind of gives a little web web development agency piece within it. And I think what she's talking about for me is about what's the word I'd use? Having the cheek, and not the cheek, but the pride in what you're doing. You're worth it. You add value. The idea that you look people in the face when you talk to them. I think also Casey Brown kind of identifies with people about the nervousness about asking for the right price. So if you haven't looked at the Casey Brown Know Your Worth and Then Ask for It video on TED, then do go back and rewatch it. It's one that you can keep on going back to. The second exercise is about lifting your price up. A lot of people ask this question, how do we put prices up? What do we do to make our prices higher? As people who've worked with me before know, I'm obsessed about putting price up. People say the name is Robert, put your prices up, Craven, because fundamentally I believe that competing on price, actually when you're lowering the price all the time, is a mug's game, especially if the competition have got bigger pockets than you. So what you need to do is the very reverse, which is you need to put your prices up, which it means that people will recognize the value you add, which will show your confidence in your pricing, and will send a message to markets that you're an expert, you know what you're doing, and you're proud of what you're doing. That doesn't mean you put your prices up if you've not got the skill set. So this is really about nailing where you are in the league table. Are you if you think about it in terms of supermarkets or cars, are you premium brand or are you economy brand? Because people will expect 5-star service to go with 5-star prices and 1-star service to go with 1-star prices. So I'm absolutely clear about that. So the exercise gets you to fill in the table, listing existing clients, and why you might put the prices up, and what the argument might be. And just a couple of examples we've lifted from what you've been saying. There's a hotel, we want to put the price up by 20%. The monthly fee wants to go up by 20%. What kind of argument could you use? You could say, well, actually, we've looked at the hours which we put into working with you, and we've discovered that we've been, exceeding contracted hours month on month, which is absolutely fine because that's what the contract is. But what we now want to do is make sure that we get rewarded correctly for doing the work, and that's why, Mr. or Mrs. Client, you've got the better than expected results because of that time we put in because we felt it's worth doing. So now we would like to adjust the fee if that's okay with you starting next month. Another example would be working with a kind of straight retail brand, and you decide that what you want to do is add a success fee. Now, all of these things are a bit like, trying to close the gate after the horse is bolted. So it's you just need to be clear about how you present a price increase. But obviously, if you've been with a client for a couple of years and it's all fixed, now is the time to move it up. The argument for adding a success fee is that it increases the scope of the work. The argument is that you would like to share with our ambition. The argument is you also want to take some of the risk. So rather than putting a straight fee price increase in, what you want to do is you just want to share the success. Yeah, it's the skin in the game argument, and that becomes attractive. So this starts making sense now. If you think about the very first question we looked at, which was about how do you price, you can have just a straightforward menu. This is how we do our pricing, or you have the opportunity to have a little bit of flexibility in order to move the prices up. And I said before, it all depends on what your business model is and how you want to do business. But the one piece of clear advice is you be, from the client's point of view, they want you to be honest and straightforward, and they want it to be easy for them to understand. But we're just showing you kind of back of house what the options are. Another one would be an e-commerce site where you want to increase the commission fee, the monthly commission fee, say from 12 to 15% or 12 to 13%. And the argument would be that their budget for doing what they're doing has been limited. It has been again a higher effort than you anticipated based on the information they'd given you, and now what you'd like to do is rejig that. Now there's plenty of other ways, and one of the questions that we've got here is from Pierce, which is, I'm wondering if you have advice on pricing a service that isn't well defined or ring fenced yet, such as bespoke tracking or reporting solutions. Well, from your point of view, I think you've got to make sure that you've got your time and resources covered, plus a margin, plus an overhead. I think you need to probably think whether this is kind of a one-off or whether it's a long-term solution. I think you probably also need to think, Piers, about whether what message is sent out if you go out too low because you then want to increase your price, or whether you go out too high. Sometimes if it's a limited amount of work, you could go for a try before you buy, which is sometimes relatively attractive. So you say, we're going to do this as a try before you buy. We would be charging £200 a month for this, but we'll give it to you for a month for free. Now that's fine if it's something that you can do again and do elsewhere, so you can repurpose. But I think this is always about how well you have this negotiation, this conversation with the client. Do you trust the client? Are they going to just, take from you and rip you off, or are they serious about making stuff happen? The general argument is that we want our agencies, and this will be picked up in later modules. Most of the really successful agencies end up doing maybe 70–80% of their business is standard, off the standard menu piece, and maybe 20–25–30% bespoke. So you kind of want to think about whether you want to be what I kind of call a factory, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you've got a great system, a great process to make stuff happen, or whether you want to focus more on bespoke project work. In terms of valuing the business, if you're thinking of selling, it's better to have a sausage machine, where you've got standard product going out. In terms of valuations, recurring contracts is what people love. But again, it just depends on your business model. So more than happy to discuss that at another time. I hope that kind of answers that question. Got another question here, which is how do you decide how many options to offer? I think it's 2 or 3 options. Again, it just depends on what you're doing. You just really need to be. It's really about, you are in control, so you design this stuff. You make that decision. So in terms of putting your prices up, I think most of you hit the mark. There's another question I've got here, which is about how do you put your prices up? Well, I think you do it. I mean, it was in the video, but I think you do it. This is what we do annually. It's in the contract. This is what we do because of increased fees. This is what we do because we are now spending more money on training and marketing. This is in line with the competition. We gave you a discounted price for year 1 because we were small. We are now a larger agency, and the quality of the service we give has improved. Sometimes you will put the price up to scare someone away, and that's absolutely fine. If you've got a client who is difficult and you're not making money on them, you can say, in view of the change in environment, we are now going to have to charge you 20% more. If they stay, that's fine, because they become a profitable client for you. And if they decide to go elsewhere, that's fine. And in our agency, we've been known to write an email saying, to the effect of, we thoroughly enjoyed working with you. We now feel that we're not the most effective solution for you because the way we work is, is not a budget way of working, and we also don't deliver budget results. and therefore we can recommend that you go and work with someone down the road, and maybe we get a commission for making that referral, that recommendation. So you can put prices up in order to create more profit for yourself. You can also put prices up in order to send a very clear message to someone that either they stay at a higher price or they leave. So price hike is a very good way of discouraging people to stay. Generally, putting your prices up is a good thing. Remember the names, Robert, put your prices up, Robert Craven. You feel better if you put your prices up. You feel more confident if you put your prices up. People will only stay with you if they recognize the value you have. And those people who are buying on price only, looking for the cheapest solution, aren't always the best customers. It depends on your model. I know an agency who prides himself on being really, really cheap, really high volume of clients, but they don't stay very long. I know another agency who prides himself on being incredibly expensive. They get very few clients, but when they do, they stay for a long time. The stats always say there's something like 12-13% of all customer markets who will always buy the premium product. Someone will always buy a Ferrari. Yeah, someone will always want a Mont Blanc pen. Someone will always want, and not everyone wants the cheap stuff. So just think about how many people buy, a jar of standard coffee at posh shops, the cheap shops. Same stuff. Dan Ariely, brilliant video. I really hope you've looked at that video. I find him really compelling. I find the book really compelling. The book title is Predictably Irrational. It's a tougher, to be honest, it's a tougher read than the video, but the video is 20 minutes, so of course it is. I have consumed all the Dan Ariely videos because everyone is really interesting. Yeah, the issue for us when we run an agency is how do you take what Dan said and how do you translate that to your own business? And I think that's the challenge. We showed you examples of where you have solution A, solution B. This is the recommended one. We've shown you examples where there's a really clear ugly Jerry. This option doesn't have this, but this one does. And hopefully now wherever you go, you will see this kind of behavior going on. You'll see that people are doing that, and it's okay. You're helping people to buy. This selling thing which we get hung up about. I'm great at running my own agency, but I don't like selling. It's okay. You're helping people buy. What does your product or service do? Your service help people get more better clients. That's what you do. You're helping them get what they want, and all you're doing is you're taking a reasonable reward for helping them do that. They're not obliged to buy from you, so really don't have any hang-ups or guilt. Be proud of the value and the valuation that you actually offer. So Dan Ariely, if you like Dan Ariely, you will love, there's two other things I'd like to recommend. You will love Robert Cialdini's Psychology of Influence, and there's now a book after that called Pre-Influence, but Cialdini's basic principles are fantastic, and again you will see them everywhere, and I would note down his principles on a piece of paper and just think when you're in sales mode, when you're in pricing mode, how you can incorporate Cialdini's Psychology of Influence. And another, if you're a ready type person, or just Google or go to YouTube and look up, you'll find people who do 10-minute summaries. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Not such an easy read. It's not such a light read, but again, in terms of understanding psychology, how people buy and how you decide things, absolute cracker. Really. Right, we'll move on quickly. Psychology of pricing. We talked about optionality, give people choices. We talked about anchoring. I can't emphasize the importance of anchoring enough. Once you've nailed that first price point, round about £1,000 a month, round about £23,000 a year, once you've nailed the first price point, everything else is relative to that. So it becomes really important in your discussions with clients about how much they're intending to spend, that you put that front price point in mind. And you can either say, oh yes, I see you work next, your office is next door to big agency. Big agency typically charge £1,500 a month for this service. We charge 1,000. So you put that price point there, and then you come in beneath it. Or alternatively, yeah, you can anchor it within your own services. We have, and again, anyone who knows me knows I'm a great fan of platinum, gold, silver, bronze services, where you can give people choices according to how much they want or what they want. So optionality, anchoring, defined choices. Some lovely examples sent in of defined choices where you were literally talking about the sorts of clients and how much interaction you want, and therefore it appeared that the product had been designed bespoke for the needs of the client. Power of 9, I always struggle with the power of 9 personally, but it does make sense. Yeah, I can spell the names in the link. I just realized that does actually make sense, Peter. So Robert Cialdini is spelled Cialdini. Oh look, there's stuff coming in, and there is Daniel Kahneman. There's a link for Daniel Kahneman. Thank you, Google partners. So Robert Cialdini, Cialdini, and Nara Media. Do you have any tips on dealing with procurement departments? We believe the rates we've offered are fair, but there's room to reduce them. Do we stand firm or give in a little? There's a Dan Ariely link. Okay, right, now we're on a roll. Let me just make sure I'm clear about where I am in the piece. Procurement departments. Okay, this is really the job of the procurement department is to screw you down on price. That is their job. They get paid on results for screwing you down on price. So they have a benchmark price. They will know that typically an agency charges out at 11% for the work that you're doing. They'll know that price. They'll have seen other people, they'll have seen other proposals, so they know roughly where that stands. And they're going to get rewarded. They're going to get their bonus if they can, I can't use any other language, if they can screw you down to 8 or 9%. So they're going to go in asking for that. And I tell a story of working with a client on a huge project worth millions, and went in to see them. They said, you've got the work. We go and see the procurement department. The procurement department said, we've got 3 things. We want you to demonstrate that the work you've done works. We want to pay you 6 months after the year end. So that, in other words, wait 18 months to get paid. So I said, well, that's not happening. Forget that. Our terms are, it's a third up front, a third in the middle, a third at the end, or maybe it was a third up front and then monthly payments. I can't remember which it was in that particular case. This was worth millions of pounds. And then he said, we love the prices, but we want 30% off everything. Now, I'm not saying it's the right attitude, but again, when we come to negotiation, on the negotiating module, we can talk about it. I stood up and walked out. And then they came back to me because they needed us more than they didn't. But procurement are there. They are professional negotiators, and they are there to get the best possible price for their client. So I think you have to be really, really, really firm. And if you're going to give something, and we talk about it in the module on negotiation, it's a conditional thing. You can take a 0.5% off, but in return for that, you won't be giving as much reporting or whatever it is. So you don't just give, you don't just flex, you don't just make it appear that you've just made up a price and there's so much margin there that you can be screwed down on price. And think, if they've got a procurement department, there's something they can give you. So one of the things that they gave me in my discussion was because they were a cash-rich organization, so they ended up paying for a year's work in advance in return for a discount, because it was worth more to us to have the 12-month fees in our bank than to wait for the money. And that relationship went on for, I think, 5 years of being paid upfront for work coming in. Obviously, there was a balancing thing later on. Right. So Great question, really good question, and thanks for putting up those links. Really recommend you checking out Kahneman and checking out Cialdini. Calculating your true hourly cost rate. This was the interesting one. When I looked through what you've done on that, there was you could see as you looked through the numbers, there was like, oh my word, I hadn't realized how much. Oh my word. It is so scary when you look at what the annual wages is. Add in national insurance, add in your contribution to sick pay, add in your contribution to maternity pay, and when you look at all the benefits you might do, like healthcare and life insurance and the gym you offer them, and you add in technology costs like the leases and the licenses, and you add all the business costs, and you add all the other costs like dealing with people going on jury service and paying for meetings, and then you divide that by the number of days you've actually got, you end up discovering, how much it costs, to put one of your people out for a day. And we've had the conversation that people just hadn't realized how expensive it was to put forward one of their members of staff to do some work. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And the arithmetic doesn't lie. And the one big thing from today's session is you have to, Dilbert says, you look intelligent if you say profit is the difference between what you pay for something and what you sell it for. Okay, that's Dilbert. Yeah, you look intelligent if you buy for one price and you sell. That's what you're doing. When you're in business, you are buying product for one price and selling it for another. But the price you sell it at has to be greater than the price you pay for it. So you have to have real knowledgeable understanding of how much it costs to send people out. And then once you know how much it costs, what a work day costs you, then you've got to be really honest with yourself about what the utilization rate is. So you go back and you look and you say, okay, so our utilization rate is 70%. So even for every 100 days that I pay for, I only have 70 days which I'm actually selling. So I know as an agency owner, we don't go into running agencies to become an accountant, but we need a grasp on these numbers. And what I will say is either you really need to understand the numbers, or alternatively, you need someone really close to you who understands the numbers to make sure that you're pricing correctly, to make sure you're not ending up being a busy fool. And that's, that's the thing. We start up in business, we're really excited, we've done so well, we've got people buying from us, it's really fantastic, but many of us are a bit coy. We don't want to be looking like we rip people off. We don't want to look like we're overpricing. When people say no to you and they say it's on price, it means one of several things. Okay, firstly, people always blame price when they don't want to buy from you, because it's just really easy. Yeah, do you want to buy those jeans? No, they're too expensive. I would argue that if you're not selling, it's either that you're not very good at selling, your sales and marketing is not very good. We've got a module on sales and marketing coming out. Or maybe the service and the product isn't very good. It doesn't actually deliver what's on it. It's very rarely about the price point. If I don't make a sale, the reason I don't make a sale is because I have failed to convince the client of the value to them. That is true absolutely of selling agency services. If people don't buy from you, they will blame price, but actually it's normally because we haven't convinced them of the overt, clear business benefits for them. That for every £100 that they give us, that they will get £200 in profitability. For every £100 they give us, they will get 100 strong leads, of which they can convert 20, and so on and so forth. So the price objections, and we'll talk about that on the next time, is is weak. For me, is weak because it just means we haven't sold stuff whatsoever. It's all about marketing and sales. So you must calculate your true hourly rate of cost. And I know, because I've seen your sheets and all of you have done it, you've kind of bottled out. You must do it, please, because then you know what you're dealing with. Then you can price it properly. Then you have confidence about your pricing. And then you know at the end of the week and at the end of the month, because your pricing is strong and that there is profit in there for you, that at the end of the year, there's enough money for you to draw money out of the business. Otherwise, what happens is you wait and wait and wait, and then the accountant says, "Oh, by the way, you've done £100,000, £200,000 worth of sales. Well done. Unfortunately, you spent £196,000 doing it. So there should only be £4,000 left for you for the year, and that's not good." So fascinating seeing what you were saying and asking about pricing agency services. Love that. I've got one more question that's come in. What happens if a client rejects your proposed increase in price? Great. You have a number of choices. You can either say you don't wish to pay. That's fine. Unfortunately, that's how we have to do business now, because that's, for us, it's not good. Your business, we're a business. It's not good business sense for us to work at these prices. So I'll recommend someone else for you to go to. Or if you are just hoping that they'd pay more, you can say, well, in that case, let's reduce the variety of services that you're taking on board. Or the alternative is that internally you just allocate less time to doing the work with them. So again, we're going to talk about time recording and so on and so forth, because it's always back to the Dilbert thing. How much do you pay and how much do you sell it for? So you can always either charge more, or you can in effect pay less or do less to deliver it. So if there aren't any more questions, then and great, I'm glad to see Key Principles are going to go and look at the books. I will. Oh, hello, Key Principles. Give ideas on the number of leads. Likely conversions is something we tend to steer clear of, as it varies so much by client. We don't guarantee 20 leads. Should we be more confident on this? Yeah, great question. I hate to say it depends, but if we go and see a client, we know what their previous agency was getting for them. It is really, really compelling to say, we can see what your previous agency was doing for you, we can do more. It becomes more compelling if you put a number to it, because that makes you look like the expert and looks like you know what you're talking about. And Doug Hall, in a book called Kickstart Your Business Brain, Doug Hall, and that's H-A-L-L. Doug Hall says there's to win a proposal, you need to demonstrate an overt business benefit. People like to see numbers. So you can get so you don't need to necessarily say you will get an extra 20 leads per month. You can soften that. There is a midway where you say, typically clients who work with us will see leads generated increase by 20%. And we're happy to show you the evidence, the spreadsheet where that's demonstrated. So rather than specifically guaranteeing, you're giving it's an anchoring thing in a way. You're giving a very clear steer about what's going on. And I think as you become more proficient and you have better understanding, then it's probably a good thing to do. So and especially if you work in a niche, if you only work with estate agents or you only work with travel companies, you'll have more research to look back on to make it happen. Agree, but if they're new to Google Ads, then it's tricky. No, yeah, absolutely. If they're new to Google Ads, then again, I think all you can do is say, typically clients who are new to us with Google Ads in service as a service firm, because you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, are an accountant, architect, surveyor, solicitor. When we work with them, what we normally do is we start at so much per month for the ad spend and work with us. And we would expect within 6 months that you will have seen round about these kind of numbers. But of course, that will vary according to quality, because I think there's always the quality quantity thing. So I think it's always a thing about the discussion. There's always a thing about the relationship. And I think that we're always trying to think of ourselves not as a supplier, but as an advisor. Okay, and the more strategic you are, the more you are about helping them understand what the options are and how they should behave, and the less we just talk about we can do PPC and it's 10%, the stronger the relationship is going to be. Brilliant. You've got examples from certain sectors, so there you go. I would, if I was in your shoes, I would create a series of really simple case studies, who they were, what their problem was, what their concerns were, what we did, what the results were, and you'd have maybe 5 of those, and then you say, here are our 5 case studies of new to PPC people, and you can talk to the people, and that's kind of where I go. Brilliant, fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure talking and sharing with you. Really looking forward in a fortnight to seeing you again, speaking with you again. So we've just done pricing agency services. Next time we're doing objection handling, and negotiation. So that's going to be really fantastic. You'll be able to watch it and then finish. But please fill in the quiz and worksheets. The more quiz and worksheets we have, the more I can respond specifically to what your questions are. The more quiz and worksheets we have filled in, the more we can see how it's working for you. Spread the word about the program. Let other people know about the program who are Google partners, especially if you've heard that they're on the program as well. And on that note, I'm going to say have an absolutely brilliant fortnight. It's a real pleasure to be able to help you to grow and develop your agencies. It's a real pleasure to be involved, and a big thank you to Google for setting this up. When does the next week open? I can't specifically answer that right now because I don't have my diary in front of you, key principles, but I am not even going to ask Google partners to give you the answer because they are so quick. Next Wednesday. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you. It's been great. I know it's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's there to get you thinking. I hope you and your teams go away, do brilliant stuff, feel more confident, and so on that note, I'm going to say thank you all very much and goodbye. And until Wednesday, we'll have a great time, go and do wonderful stuff. Thank you very much indeed, and goodbye.